Hey everyone, this one is a great episode because not only do you have my beautiful voice to listen to, we actually have a very special guest who I'm super excited to talk about design with all of you. Hey everyone, I hope you're well, playing on and making the games that you all love. You're joining me, your host, but not just me. We have a guest who's exotic and class with all the different foods he likes to sample from around the world. Level designer extraordinaire, the lovely Wilhelm. How are you doing, mate?
I'm extraordinaire, apparently. I'm doing good. Sunny here in Austin. Very happy and excited to talk LD-related topics.
Yeah, man, I'm great. Well, thank you again for just coming on the show, mate. Absolute pleasure to have you here and to be able to talk to you about your work and your design philosophies, mate. That's the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me. I've been a big fan of the podcast. That's how we started our convo, actually. So I'm really excited and can't wait to contribute as best as I can.
First, a quick word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is the incredible developers over at GameTextures.com. For those of you who do not know who these incredible developers are, let me tell you a bit about them and their project. Their goal is to create incredible texture libraries for you as developers from all stages of production, whether that means early prototyping to the finished product. They have a range of different textures for you to download and use in your projects. Not only this, but they really emphasize the fact that it is from developers for developers. So they have a range of different art styles, again, to try fit those needs on multiple platforms, from Unreal with their focused materials to Unity and Blender. All of these are available for you if you join through one of their subscriptions. They have 30 free materials available now at no extra cost if you register and download them, which is in the link down below. You have a ton of different tiers to select from hobbyist, freelancers to full-time dev. They have you covered not only in terms of materials, stage, but price range as well. And for level designers, this is really important. You've heard me say it before about getting your color coding correct. So if you want to increase the different range of materials to help sell your prototypes or full game in development, then please subscribe, and you will also get a 10% discount off their subscription when you use the coupon code level99 at checkout. Join them now, grab a ton of cool materials, and help make your levels and environments pop. All right, back to the show. I'm glad to have you. I'm going to shatter and ruin all your illusions. How it all seems smooth out front, but trust me, it's all a fire behind, which no one sees behind the curtain. Wizard of Oz style.
Game development 101. Yeah.
No, but so for the people who may not know you, do you mind giving a bit of a brief history to who you are and how you got into video games, mate?
Oh my God, yeah. I've been working in the industry since 2015, but I got into so I didn't get into video games till very late in life, and child-wise, like around 7 or 8. I really wanted to buy video games, but I wasn't allowed to. My dad was very strict, not in a bad way, but he was like, it's important to learn how to communicate, and sort of old school. And he was right, but he was also wrong, and it failed ultimately. I got my first Xbox when I was 9 years old because my dad wanted to teach me the values of saving money. And that was awesome. And yeah, like basically, I got into the industry working in serious games, and then I worked in LA at Reverge, which is the studio behind Skullgirls, and then QA on Shantae. And then for a year, I practiced on my level design craft and ended up getting a job at Velen working on Knockout City. And then after Velen, I worked at TikTok Games working on Bark, which came out this year as well. and then Amazon recently, and now I work on the fantastic Star Wars Hunters franchise as a level designer, and I here in beautiful Austin, and I'm very excited, very happy, very passionate, and yeah, it's been a hell of a journey to get here.
Okay, well, it sounds it, mate, and we won't talk too much about your current project for obvious reasons, with NDAs and everything. But yeah, what a franchise to be able to put your name on, right? In the sense of great universe, incredible characters, well known across the world, right? And for a fan so passionate about yourself, right? What an experience.
Yeah, it's surreal. You know how it is. Like, it's one of those things where you wake up in the morning and you realize, holy shit, like this is what I'm doing at the moment. But it's what we discussed a little bit before the call. It's like, I kind of treat it like the All Blacks saying, the rugby team. They have this beautiful saying, which is, if you wear the jersey, you wear it proudly, with respect, and with the same passion you fueled before you wore it. But when you're done, you fold it up neatly, you put it on the table, and you give it to the next person. And I have enormous respect for Star Wars. Of course, I'm a fan, but I'm still a level designer first and foremost, and I will use my fuel of the passion for Star Wars, but most importantly, make a fantastic, well-designed video game from it. So I hope I will achieve that. I'm certain we will. We're really excited, and it's been an exciting few weeks for us, and can't wait. Really can't wait to see what fans think.
Oh man, that's going to be amazing, and I wish nothing but you and your team the best of luck through all the development, mate.
Thank you so much.
Going to be a great one to see to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to pick your mind. We'll go for a bit of a broader question to start us off, my friend. And one of the things I want to ask you, because you said you go out to games a little bit later, which I think offers you a very different perspective versus others who grow up with games, right? And especially with games being now more mainstream, it's almost so easy to consume games, especially now with phones and everything. Yeah. So I'm curious then, mate, what inspires your design process? What do you use to start thinking, come up with your ideas?
It really, for a long time, it was, a lot of just the same process that any other, I think a lot of designers really do, listening to podcasts, reading books, all that stuff. But actually, lately, it's been none of those. It's more about understanding the intention of things, and I believe in a hierarchy of needs for players, and I work around that. Right. That's kind of where a lot of my inspiration comes from. I think that came from KOC, but I think it stemmed further through other games, and it adapted, and it has always helped me out, because you can throw a lot of nice, pretty architecture and theories and all that, but if it doesn't make the intent of the game fun, if it doesn't make it playful, if it doesn't really meet the goals of our design intent, then it sounds like weird white noise. I think is probably the extreme way of explaining it, but it's like, I think that's where my inspiration comes in. It sort of comes from intent, sort of from a hierarchy of needs, and then, how that fuels that passion to broaden that, it can depend. Like, sometimes I will watch movies, like for KOC, I watched a lot of YouTubers in Japan and listened to a lot of Pink Floyd. But then for Jukebox Junction, the train level that we worked on, it was going coincidentally to Holland, taking a lot of photos of train platforms, and then, like, watching a lot of History of Britain by Simon Schama, which was very a weird combination of things. You got the modernism of Holland versus the sort of explicitness of Simon Schama talking about Queen Elizabeth I. It was such a weird blend of strange things, but it just worked for some reason. Anyway, maybe I'm very unconventional, but that was basically it.
No, man, that's great. And I think that's something that's just worth mentioning as well, though, right? In terms of looking outside of games, whether that be, except this podcast, listen closely. Everyone should listen to this podcast. But no, I mean, that was
please do.
If you ever want to see Willem again, you will listen to this podcast.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, man. And then while you're at it, download Star Wars Hunters. And Knockout City, VGA nomination. Thank you so much.
But like,
and cut.
This is done, right? We still it's only 7
Not
minutes.
bad. Good first take. Oh, now the fire trucks are going past. Sorry about that. Like, that's perfect.
It's timing, perfect timing. Like, but like it is that thing of learning more about emotions, right? Like I've recently got into got into that of psychology and philosophy. I've just been reading a bit about Kant, which, just FYI, don't read his books. No, you can find the great information on YouTube. It's just his books are very dry. Get the information, but the book itself is extremely dry. But it's those elements like you were saying, right? Like the thing that I've been really trying to look at more is two things. Is one, more about like emotional design through architecture, right? Like think about these philosophies or traits that trigger certain emotions in us, and then can that be applied in any form of architecture, right? In terms of, the simple one of claustrophobia by making a space small, right? But like there's more to that, as we both know. And I think that's just such a great point, is think about if it's the emotional theme, or as you said, it could be the service of a mechanic. All of that should be the elements you think about, as well as these design theories. So I think that's such a great point, man. Like really, really good stuff. And as we said, listen to the podcast. But
listen to the podcast and nominate Knockout City for a VGA. Thank you so much.
Get it done now. But
please, December 9th, you know what to do. And then after that, play Star Wars Hunters and anything that Max is playing.
Nominate anything that they will come out for.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, it's such a, like you said, it's such an important thing to see. And I think especially with like when you look at kind of relationships we have just with our friends, our family, our loved ones, right? Like it doesn't necessarily need to be that for every game. We both know each game has its own design challenges, cores, and all of that. But I think looking outside can really cause or spark some really interesting inspiration, right? And sorry, go on, mate. Go on.
No, I was going to add to that, like, and like, because there's also like, there's that big balance of like, I have to be different for the sake of being different. But actually that's never like, I think always like, that's not actually not even the point of that. It's like, sometimes as a designer, we're implementers, and how we implement is constantly changing, and it evolves as games get easier, in parentheses, to block out the stuff we do, or make the stuff that we need to do, or integrate the philosophies we want to integrate. We have to take everything into context of what it actually means. And, you can't just always be unconventional for the sake of unconventional philosophies, but like sometimes it benefits people and it benefits players, and it's always important to just understand like what your intent is, and how you get there is always open to interpretation. Every game is different.
Yes. Every
way you're going to make a game is different, and like whether it is through different design principles or hierarchy of needs, that's I think like really crucial to the subject itself.
I completely agree. And I think, do you know what brought this to my attention when you talked about like people constantly want to either going against the grain or be more exotic? I think a lot of that, people don't realize it comes from, when you look at Titanfall 2, just as an example, that overall was an incredible game, just overall. And people love that time switching level, which is great. This is what I'm about to say here is not to belittle this. Oh, I think this is great. I think though that people think of Titanfall 2 and obviously remember that and think, oh, if I want my level to be remembered, then I have to be the one to make the level outside the box. But what people don't realize, and it's the same with Last of Us, the moment where in the first game where Ellie ignores the player when they offer to boost her, right, which then leads to the giraffe. People don't realize, it's like you said, right, mastering those elements and figuring out those elements that make the core so good is what then makes the whole subverting expectations pay off so well. As great as it is to have those incredible unique moments, you also need to have a strong understanding and a great base of levels which do the core so well to really pay off from those moments. And I think sometimes we get lost in that, as you said, and we're all like, God, how do I make the next time jump level? Which it can't be done.
No,
that level was done for a reason, and it's great for its own reason.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, like I'll give an example of this. Like, so for Knockout City, we for Rooftop Rumble, we always wanted it to be like a relatively contained map. Small is not the right word. I think small and large is always like it's an opinion, because you can't define small by just the scale of it. But like, we wanted something a bit contained and easy to get in and out of spaces, you know. But like, you know, it was sort of. We followed a lot of stuff, I remember, early on, and like I remember we copied a lot of Call of Duty principles, and it was like, this is shit. Like, I just remember people would say, this is actually really not that good. It doesn't work for KOC because we're a third person game, we're this or that, whatever the reasons were at the time. And I just remember, like, I said, look, like, you know, if we're making arena maps, we probably have to lean to those. And then we tried some arena styled ideas, and that was terrible too, because in the end, every game is so different, and the needs to bring the players into spaces were different. And we had a core rule in our levels. Like, you can make any level you want, however way you want it, but there's like, the biggest rule is make sure everyone plays everywhere. If they don't, that is a failure of design for our game, because you give too much power to players who stay in the same place, and we know how powerful that is in our game. And so when we did do a lot of that psychological philosophies behind that, it was like, in the end, players that conventional methods of looking into how the flow of other maps work and how that stuff for previous games just couldn't directly be applied. But we can take their teachings of what brings players into spaces, exemplify it to the game we're making. And I think that really was very different from just saying, you know, I'm going to analyze this map. I'm going to think more about like why I need to go to that space versus, you know, how that feels for the sake of flow doing that. Because for KOC, it was all about need versus how good it felt to get from point A to point B. And I think that it was so powerful and so potent and beautiful in a weird way to make that subjugation work. So,
oh man, that's
subjugation. That's the wrong word. That topic for the player work.
There we go. We'll edit it all out, mate. We promise. You know, promise.
Yay! And then play Star Wars Hunters after.
Play Star Wars Hunters right now.
Knockout City.
But no, mate. Like you bring up an interesting point, and what I wish for you to expand on, if you can, mate. You talked about like being able to fight anywhere in Knockout City. And I'm wondering, how did you guys, or what were the principles like behind that, right? Because most of the time, and this is, I've only worked briefly on a multiplayer game, so I'm no expert on this subject. But a lot of the times, obviously, you have these more corridors leading to the arenas, right? Like the paths, they lead here, and they kind of want to condense you into these combat spots, for lack of a better term, right? And I guess, how did you guys go against that by making sure combat was available everywhere?
At Level Design Lobby, we believe everybody has a story to tell. Hobbyist or student, freelancer or veteran, we made it our mission to unite those who share our passion for creating and developing great games. Thanks to our generous Patreon backers, we've been able to do just that. So if you've already pledged your support, thank you. If not, you too can ensure the future of Level Design Lobby, helping us to create even more exciting content, collaborations, interviews, and much more. With awesome perks and rewards, whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, you're sure to find something for you. Want to share tips, tricks, and advice with passionate, like-minded developers? Our awesome community Discord has you covered. Fancy practicing your level design, creating strong portfolio content, and having fun? Then try our level design weekends. Or perhaps you want to individually discuss your work, hone your skills, or level up your career? Then consider our one-on-one mentorships. If you share our vision, then go to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby for more information and to pledge your support. Thank you.
So I love what I will say is I love to say that it was because of this and this and that, but actually, there really wasn't, like, we really did not know how to do that originally, and I'm being very honest about that. Like, we had a lot of maps where, for some reason we were playing all over the place, but we could never really find a concrete reason. Because every map had a gimmick. It had a hook. We like to call it a map hook. So we interpret everything very differently because of that. So the way the one thing that did work was we had to understand kind of why players were moving around and trial it with a lot of random ideas. And eventually we kind of narrowed it down to what is a player doing before they even enter the map. They're going to spawn in. After they spawn in, their first need is get a ball. Mm-hmm. Once they get a ball, then they go find players who are also probably trying to find a ball. And if they're not doing that, they're either going to other players to catch a ball, or they're going to go in ball form and yeet themselves off the map or do a big ultimate throw, essentially. Now, the reason why I bring that up is, like, that interpretation, that psychological connection was kind of the key to how we made players want to move around. What we did learn very early on was the big need, basically, in Knockout City is you're finding balls. Like, the core principle of the game and the maps is you're just searching for balls all the time, and that's fine. Like, that's exactly what it stands for. So when you put a ball in a space that made sense, that had a lot of pros and cons, and balanced it out very nicely, not too much high ground, but if it did, it had to make sure that players realized the risk behind it, that language led them to a place that felt consistent. That psychological sort of thought process, that moment to moment that we take for granted in a split second, that's actually very well drawn out when you picture it in the way that we picture it for our maps, is the way we basically made sure players played everywhere. So in short, what I'm trying to say is we put a ball in a space that was designed for combat. We made sure they fed in with each other. And as a result, that's how we made Knockout City levels. And that is legit the way it does it. Now, of course, there were other metrics and other things to take into consideration. We had, if we use cylinders, we had to use it in a specific cylinder-like shapes. We had to use it in a specific way. We can only use primitives. We couldn't use BSPs, all kinds of stuff. Right. But, like, it was specific stuff that we had to take. That specific stuff was just the specifics. It was that philosophy, that flow of need for the player. That was the key part.
That's so fascinating, mate. Thank you for sharing that. Just, I like that word you said there, that the need of the players, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's such an important one that I wouldn't even thought about, but completely makes sense, right? Completely makes sense.
We like to call it purposeful design. It's like the word I say, like, there's a purpose to why you want to be in the space that you want to be in the first place. And, like, not just for the sake of saying, oh, look, I've added purpose because the ball is there. It's like, no. Think about it. Like, when you're in this place where there is a ball, if it gets caught by another player, I'm going to need to find another ball if I want to get away with, or stick with the space that I want to be in, like, that was kind of like that, how we interpret things for a game. And, like, that's basically it.
No, man, that's a great addition to it. I think it's really, really smart. Listen, I've not really worked on many multiplayer games, so this is all great stuff for me, mate. So I really appreciate it.
No problem.
A lot, man. I want to ask, because there's so much traversal types in the game, right? Where you can turn yourself into a ball, hang glider, certain levels that have the tubes to move you through them all as well, right? Like,
yeah, that was a fun one to design.
Yeah, because it was Back Alley Brawl, right?
Yep, that's the one.
I want to ask, how did you find, I guess, a way to balance all these modes of transport to make each one feel, I guess, meaningful and useful for the player?
And in terms of the glider versus the hook of the mechanic of the pipes, or, like, what specifically?
Yeah, like, what is it, I guess, you thought about when designed to make it, like, the player want to try reuse them to bring them into their arsenal right now. Obviously, not every player is going to use every mechanic per se, but they will use a few of them, right, to move around.
Yeah. So, well, I will always say, like, it's the same principle that we applied with making players move around the map, which is, why would you want to interact with any of those? And the best way I can say it is, I don't know where I heard this quote from, but if you give a player a room full of guns, that's more fun than saying you only have one gun you can select from in that same room to fight robots or something like that. The psychology behind that is like, if you open interpretation of how you want to interact with something, that makes it more impactful, because players then are more curious. And when players are curious, they try new things. When they try new things, that's fun. That's interesting. They don't just want to be told the same old thing that they can pretty much apply anywhere else. Like, they want to have a sandbox of ideas. That's why Gary's mod works. That's why Fortnite works in its own ways. And a lot of stuff, when you interpret things your own way, that always makes things fun. So when we had the glider, we never tell players, hey, you have to always use the glider when you go across gaps. You can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to open it up, it's fine. In fact, there are ways on Rooftop Rumble, I believe. No, actually, you can't go across Rooftop Rumble without a glider. But like, we aided that in a way where it made it a lot easier to glide through without having to worry about going through the gliders. But you're open air, and so you're a bit more vulnerable to attack. But like with the pipes, for instance, like the pipes was designed as a solution to a problem, a bandage solution, essentially, because the map was never designed around a hook. It was always designed for something completely different, which I can't talk too much about. But like, sure. The pipes, the biggest issue we always got with feedback was players felt lost. And so we worked backwards of what is lost in Knockout City, because if you're just searching for balls, like, you can't really be lost. Well, the problem is there was so much high buildings, close encounter spaces that players just felt a little disoriented and claustrophobic. So we always told players, hey, if you've got like, if you go through these, like, if we find a way to transport the players to another part of the map in a way that didn't punish them, they allowed to have choice in spaces where you never thought they could have choice, that would mean a little bit more to the players versus, saying you need to use the pipes in order to win a game or something like that. It's very passive. It feels like it's out of the way, but that was the point. It was because we wanted players to have that choice to traverse through the space in a way that was efficient, sometimes safe, but it was always based on that choice, essentially. So that's basically how we always interpret how I've always interpreted a mechanic and for a map. We always gave choice to the player. I never said to players, here's something just for the sake of something. I always said, here is something. It's your choice whether you want to make that benefit you at any point. The trains are a good example. The gliding across Rooftop Rumble is an example. The pipes and back alley, 100% is that example.
Brilliant. No, I think there's great examples, man. And I think it is that, like, toy box, right? As you said, right? Mm-hmm. Offering that and then letting the players figure out a creative solution with the toys that best suit, especially in Knockout City, right? Like you said, maybe not every player is going to use all the modes of transport there, but they're going to find ways to use them, when to use them, and then best fit their play style, right? Which,
is
great.
And because it's so different to every player, like, I hear players who just use the tubes because it's fun, and that's great. Cool. I'm glad you do, because traversal is a big part of our game. I know players who don't like to use it. They're like, what's the point? I get shifted out of the camera and everything. Also the point, that's actually fine. And I hear other players who's like, listen, my teammate is stuck on the other side. I've got a bowl already. I'm going to come help you, and I'm going to find a tube, and I'm going to get there ASAP. Don't you worry, man. Like, I'm going to do that. And that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, mate. No, I think it's great, mate, honestly. And sadly, though, mate, that is where we're going to have to wrap things up a little bit. I just know due to time of yours. But I wanted to ask, is there any kind of tips off the top of your head when you think about aspiring LDs who are working currently to break into the industry? Is there any sort of tidbits of information that you'd give to them while they're working on their portfolios and their own skills?
I would always say have fun. That's the most important thing. People will always say, oh, you need to be connected. You need to learn from others. Have fun with what you do. I never had any mentor to teach me how to do levels,
Right.
but I had fun making levels and I learned from my mistakes, and at least I try to, and I continue evolving it. But most importantly, I had fun with what I do. And I don't have a single regret with that playfulness ever. And I think like if you're an aspiring LD and you are someone who always feels like, what more do I need to do what I do? Enjoy what you're doing. Continue making maps, continue making blockouts. Even if you're experienced and you kind of haven't worked in a long time, just continue having fun with what you do, because I can assure you there is people that will appreciate that passion more than just, the thought that sometimes always goes towards it, because it is an important skill set. It is an important part that tests your tenacity during the low times. And it's the key that reflects also on your work, and I think it's a very important part. Even though I'm very proud of the work I've done personally, I can assure you there's a lot of things I could have done better, and there's a lot of things I want to continue practicing. I mean, for sure, I can tell you this right now. Out of work, I still do blockouts. I still improve in my craft. I still think, how can I do this better and think more efficiently, because I enjoy that, but also because I know it's my weak points, and it's really, really important. It's not a bad thing to think like that either. It's actually healthier, Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And there's always stuff to learn, I think, is always the big takeaway, like you said. And having fun's important with that. 'Cause the thing that sometimes makes me sad in some ways, and sad's maybe a strong word, but I'm always like, maybe overwhelmed is the correct word. But there's so much that goes into, we talked about, that goes into a level, and each game is so different. So not everything you learned from the previous project is applicable to your next project. Yep. And the more you keep learning, the more you it's that famous phrase, the more you learn, the less you know, right? And I always was like, what does that mean? And then the more subjects that you find that apply to your new project that you're working on, the more like, wow, like there's still so much out there. And he said having fun with that is important, because it will become really hard to appreciate that if you're not enjoying your craft, right? And
100%. And 100%, like, there's a lot of folks that will always give advice, and every advice is good advice as far as I'm concerned. But like, as long as you have fun, as long as you're fueled with it, as long as you enjoy what you do, it may not come immediately, but it will come when you least expect it, And it's passionate people are the people that the companies, and studios will always invest in. They will take the most time to make sure that you're part of their system. And I think a lot of folks should take that into account with whatever they do going forward, what they've done in the past, etc. I love what I do. I have no regrets, about any of the choices I made. I certainly know I can do things better, but I also know that as long as I'm having fun, I know that I'm only going to get better at what I do, and that's key to me. Maybe it's a bit sportsman-like, but I guess it's kind of how I see things.
Oh man, it's a great view on it for sure. And listen to the podcast as well would be the second tip, whatever we say. But no, man, I just say thank you so much for coming on again. And if people want to reach out to you, how's the best way to do it, mate?
They can reach out to me on Twitter at Willem567. I don't know why I called it Willem567, but like, I think it's because as a kid, I used to make a lot of YouTube videos, and I thought, hey, I should tie my Twitter account to that. And for years, I've been trying to change it, but you can't. So, but yeah, Willem567. And of course, you can see a lot of the work I've done through my website, which is willemkranendonk.com. And I am doing a lot of blog posts about some of my stuff that I've learned over the games I've worked, and a bunch more, which I'm very excited about. And of course, I love to help people. So if I can help any way, this is not like, obviously, a flooding of DMs are coming in, but like, if anyone
awesome,
like ever needs advice or anything, I'm always happy to talk to folks about that. And of course, nominate Knockout City for VGA, you know, like.
I'll put even a link to that. A link to all this will be in the description down below, so you can check it out as well. So you don't need to remember the 567 behind anything like that. But but no, that'll all be there. But again, thank you so much, mate, and appreciate it. And if you do want to get in contact with me, you can do so via Twitter as well @MaxPairs. You can email into the show leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show to make sure we're constantly improving and also getting better, then please head over to patreon.com/leveldesignlobby. Thank you, everyone, and we'll catch you all next time.